stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker of Elkins Consulting. We share stories for so many reasons, to persuade, to entertain, and to connect. What we sometimes forget, though, is the impact of the stories we tell ourselves. Whether you're sharing personal stories or business stories, how you share them makes a difference in how you remember them and in how you're perceived by the people you're interacting with. When you figure out which stories to share, difficult bosses and coworkers, successes, failures, the next step is to develop how you share them. Have you figured out your patterns and your role in those successes, discomforts, and challenges? In this series, you'll hear stories that will resonate with you, and you'll nod your head in understanding, and then we'll dig into the lessons from each of those. How many times have you been sharing a story only to be interrupted by a person eager to share his own? When I'm working with clients on communication techniques, I remind them to listen for understanding, not necessarily to respond. But during this podcast, I'm asking you to listen to actually consider your related stories, to consider which stories in your life might have impacted you in a similar way and lessons you might have learned from them. Today's podcast features Kyle Burt, an entrepreneur and exactly the kind of person who fascinates me, a doer. When he decides he wants to do something, he finds a way to make it happen. Even more impressive, in every success, he has found cheerleaders and enthusiastic supporters to help him do what he does. We found we have a lot in common, and I couldn't be more grateful for the time he took to chat with me about the leaps he's taken and the people he surrounds himself with to make him successful. I'm excited today to speak with my friend Kyle Burt, and I invited him on the podcast today because I read an article about the ASU hockey team that he started. They had never had a hockey team, and he started this hockey team on his own because he really wanted a hockey team. And I immediately felt like we were kindred spirits because he's one of those people that says he's going to do something, and then he actually does it, and he follows through. And I'm finding more and more that that's kind of an unusual trait. So I decided I needed to reach out to him and speak with him, and I'm so glad I did. So welcome, Kyle, to the show. Your stories don't define you, but how you share them will.
Hey, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that warm intro. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I always ask this at the beginning because it always gets me excited to talk to a person even more than I already was. So my first question is, tell me something that most people might not know about you that you wouldn't find on your LinkedIn profile or on a resume. Maybe something from your childhood that would catch people a little bit off guard.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know that it's not on my resume. I mean, it's definitely not on my resume. It's just, storytelling. And that is, going back to even when I was, 9, 10 years old, I've always been like doing these crazy ideas and I've been seeing them through. Like, I wrote three or four children's books. Way back when I was 9 or 10, and I would kind of sit in my closet and write these books out and just keep going. They were like the choose your own adventure type of books where, this happened here. If you don't, if you want to save Sally, then go to page 4. If you don't, then go to page 3. It was like those type of books. So I made my own, and I would even like illustrate it, even though I'm not the best illustrator in the world. I would illustrate them and, just tell a story. And that's kind of what led me down the path that I'm in now, is because, that's at my core is telling stories. So as a salesperson, as a marketing person, that's really helped me out. So starting businesses way back when, since I was 12, just telling that story to get business and to get people to buy in. So that's something that I've never really shared before.
Wow. You wrote children's stories when you were a child.
Yeah, they were, I don't know if you ever remember the book series called Goosebumps. They're basically.
I do. Of course I remember those.
They're basically, a spin-off of that because I was reading those books back then. So I wanted to write my own.
It was kind of scary. Some of those stories actually got pretty creepy, I think.
They did. I would read one of those books a day for, like, I was in like a phase where I would read one a day for like a month and get through the whole book. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess it surprises me, that you were writing children's books as a child, but it doesn't surprise me that you are and were an avid reader. because most of the people I know that are doers are also readers.
You got to keep on expanding your horizon, your mindset, and you pick something up from every little thing you read. That's what I've noticed.
Right. Totally agree.
And then it becomes you almost, like it becomes a part of you.
It does. There's a guy on LinkedIn called Shlomi Ron, and he's a visual storyteller. And he says that you have to be a story maker.
You do.
And I love that phrase. And I ended up changing my title as the owner of my business as the chief story maker, because I just loved that he came up with that. He kind of coined that term. So,
I love that. And now you're passing that off on me, and now I'm probably going to have that mindset too.
There you go. There you go. And just saying it isn't enough. So let's demonstrate that. And we'll start with our first story. So tell me a story about something related to how you started one of those hockey teams, because I know you started 2 different hockey teams, one when you were younger and then one in college, right?
Right.
Okay. So tell me the basic story of how you managed to have that happen once you got the idea in your head, and the people that you had to surround yourself to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm one of those people where if I get onto something right now, like I'm going all in or I'm not doing it. So it's either a hell yes or it's a no way. So I'm polar opposite. So if I'm not in all the way, I'm not going to do it. And for me, like I grew up in Arizona in the desert. So hockey, desert doesn't really go together. So to clarify, the hockey teams that I've created were all roller teams, because roller hockey is pretty big in the desert because we got a lot of streets, a lot of asphalt, not a lot of ice. So, my friends and I would, friends got me involved into it. We would play hockey in a cul-de-sac, every day after school. We'd just be out there playing hockey, and that's how I got into it. My friend at the time was like in a league, and I was just playing outside. And, I'm like, hey, we're going to start this team. There's a tournament coming to town, and they want teams, and we can compete for the prize. So we put the team together. I just took everybody in that cul-de-sac and said, hey, I'm starting a team. And they're like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So we just did. And, I went to hockey games with my friend who was in a league, and I started recruiting people that were in the league. Mind you, I'm not even in a league at this point. I'm just like at his game with him, like, hey guys, great game today. I'm starting a team that we're going to compete. I think it was called Narch. Yeah, it was called Narch.
Narch?
I forget what it stood for, National Associate Roller Hockey League, something like that. And it was a tournament that came to town, once a year. So that's what we did. We put that team together. I get so much into the details sometimes that I designed the jerseys myself in Photoshop and had them printed. Like I get all the way. I don't know how to just do it a little bit.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
All my friends are laughing right now. Are you sure you're not related?
Yeah.
Wow. So one of the things that I find really drives me is when I get an idea and I find people who are just as jazzed about it, that I know will support me and encourage me, even if they can't financially contribute or whatever is going on. So, for instance, when I started the No Longer Virtual Conference, the first thing I did was I reached out to the people that I wanted to learn more from, that I knew I could learn a lot more from them if we were face-to-face. And I asked them if they would facilitate sessions. And I basically said, well, I can't afford to pay anyone, especially for this first year. But if you come, I'll waive your registration fee. And if I get a certain number of registrants, then I'll pay for your hotel room for 2 nights. And I reached out to 3 or 4 different people, and they all said, yes, absolutely, we'll do it. And as soon as I got those yeses, that's when I jumped in full force. Like what you said, both feet, no toe in the water. This is like a full-on cannonball. And I'm guessing that you have something similar to that. Can you tell me a specific story about that?
Yeah, sure. So relating back to, starting the hockey team, the college hockey team for ASU, I was a freshman at ASU. Facebook had just become available to me. It was only available to college kids. You had to literally have a college.edu email to get involved, and they were doing it like one college at a time. So ASU just got lit up that year, 2005. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to start this hockey team. And traditionally, like, I'm new on campus. I know absolutely nobody here because I started a little bit later than my actual high school class. So, I was late to the party, so I didn't know anybody. So what I did is like, hey, there's this Facebook tool. I don't know what's going on here. People are starting to post weird things on here, like it's what's happening here. So I'm like, hey, maybe I could just search for hockey on here and find some people. And I'll never forget that first guy that I got on there. Ironically enough, Jimmy Woods, because I was going alphabetically, but he was last name Woods. Got him on the phone, and he was a hell yes right away. He said, yes, we're doing this. He had almost more enthusiasm about it than I did at the moment. So I absorbed that energy, just like you're saying, just like your story. I absorbed all that energy, and then I'm like, okay, well, we're doing this. And then I just went down the line. Anybody that said that they remotely liked hockey on Facebook, I sent them a personal message, like a personal direct message, say, hey, we're starting an ASU hockey team, just down the line. Next thing you know, I get all these people together like 2-3 weeks into it. They're like, yes, we're going to do it. Where are we going to do it at? And then I was faced with the reality of, oh, wow, this is going to, we're going to run into some roadblocks here. Like, we need a sponsor. We need a place to play, a place to practice. So I just did what I had to do. Spent a whole day, got that stuff lined up, called like a team meeting on a Thursday night, like 30 minutes away from ASU at a roller hockey rink. And enough people for 3 hockey teams showed up.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
I was expecting at least I knew that about like a dozen or so people were going to come, but I wasn't expecting that kind of a turnout. So,
wow. That's awesome. So how did you get the roller rink on board?
Well, I happened to be playing at that rink. So I knew the owner, and I said, hey, we're going to do this. And he said, yeah, let's do it. So, I mean, we had to charge for admission to come to play practice, but, $10-15. Let's come out here and let's practice and see if we actually can put some teams together. So we started off. The only way we could start off is you got to start at the bottom. You got to start at step one. Step one is to get the people together and to build the team. So we're not going to just like all of a sudden, hey, we're going to go compete in the college league. No, we got to baby steps. We're going to compete at a local league. We're going to just start our own team, and then we can grow it from there. So that's what happened.
Did you ever hit a point where you thought maybe this was a waste of time, or
every day? Every day, like you get like that like, oh man, I had a full-time job, so I was full-time employed by AT&T at the time, and I was going to school, and I was doing this in all my spare time. So I just around the clock, nonstop.
Wow, you must have been exhausted.
I mean, I was 20, 21.
Oh, yeah. You have all kinds of different energy when you're 20, 21.
I wasn't that bad.
So you and Jimmy, you're still buds?
Yeah, we still keep in touch from time to time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's just the people you meet from that experience. There's another guy like Tim Bogdansky. He was actually a groomsman at my wedding. He was like number 2. He was guy number 2 on the team. So yes.
Wow. And so are these the guys that you ended up being kind of part of your support network in general? I mean, way outside of the hockey world?
Well, yeah, for a time, yes. But like I said earlier, like I find something and then I go all into it. And it happens in cycles for me. So like I find something new and then I go all into that. And now I've found a different community altogether. So I've just been like out there exploring the world and exploring all these different communities. I don't even know how I found myself in the LinkedIn fam right now, in the LinkedIn creator movement. I couldn't tell you. I could walk you through it, baby steps, but it's, you just go with the flow. You go where it's going to take you. You go with, what you feel inside, with what
right
passion and what gives you a spurt of energy. And then you find that in like-minded people. So there's 7 billion people in the world. If I meet somebody, we're not all going to click. If I meet somebody and they don't have the same energy level that I have, I mean, it's just not going to go anywhere, even if we wanted it to. So you just align yourself with people that are like-minded and have that same energy level that you do.
Right. So that just led me right into this thing that I grapple with as one of these doers that has very similar attitude about kind of jumping right in and doing something and then finding something else and, ooh, shiny. So the thing I grapple with sometimes is sustainability. Do I want to start something and then feel compelled to sustain it? So when you started the hockey team, how long did you sustain that? And did you build in a sort of other leadership so that it could be sustained without you being involved?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Jimmy Woods actually kind of took the reins, and I went back to work. So like I built this team, I created it, and then I kind of handed the reins off to someone who had a little bit more time to dedicate to it. So
Did you continue to play?
I continued to play, continued to participate up to a point, and then obviously I graduated or I moved on, so I moved on. So the team is going strong. They've done a lot more for the team than I ever did, but just getting that interest was, that's my part in it, getting the interest in building up that momentum that they now have.
Somebody had to start it. Do you ever feel a little bit sad when you look at what they're doing with it? You kind of, do you have any kind of...
Yeah, you do. I mean, you naturally do. I think it's only human, like it's FOMO, fear of missing out. But, I can't be in college forever on the college hockey team. I grew up, had a family, have a beautiful baby girl now. So, I had to move on. And, I'm on to different things. I'm starting new things. Started my business 2 years ago. Started doing more of this creating online, and I got 2 LinkedIn shows now that I'm producing and hosting.
So tell me a little bit about how that started, because it's another one of those weird opportunities that dropped into your lap that you decided, yep, this is what I'm going to do next.
Oh yeah, this one's weird. So I've been on LinkedIn for 7 years. I mean, the platform has been pretty stale, right? I think we can all agree. And it was a place to go to have your resume to maybe get a job. And I've always had a job. I worked for AT&T for a decade. But something inside me at some point clicked, and I said, hey, I can't do this anymore. Had a baby girl, so I left. So I had to be everything. I had to be sales, marketing, finance, accounting. I was a one-man shop, solopreneur, had to do it all. So I found myself on LinkedIn, and I see the platforms changing. And I was making YouTube videos. I made a show called Whiteboard Wednesday, where I'd make a YouTube video talking about technology, talking over everybody's head. I had to fix that, but I was putting those videos on LinkedIn, and I was getting some success. I was getting like 100, 200 views, and at the time, that was like, okay, that's enough for me to keep going.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's that energy that we talked about.
Right.
Yeah, okay, right. Somebody cares about this.
Somebody cares about this, and I was at the point of like, man, I should stop doing this because I really need to focus on the business. I really got to make money, but then I got a phone call from a Fortune 10 customer. They were one of the 200 views in my YouTube video. My mind was just blown. I was like,
because you never know.
200 views, and you were one view of that, and you called me to be a consultant for a Fortune 10 company. I fell out of my chair. Like I completely fell out of my chair at that moment. So that's how I'm here. So I know that the power of putting yourself out there consistently, day after day after day, you never know what doors are gonna open for you. And as long as you have fun doing it, money will find you. So it's not money focused; it's others focused.
I totally agree with that. And when I was, I've been on LinkedIn about 10 years, and I remember about 5 years ago, I wrote a post about an experience I had with this fantastic tour guide in Bavaria. So I was in Germany. My husband had to work, so I thought, I'm just going to tag along. I've never been here. And I hired this fantastic tour guide down in Garmisch and Partenkirchen. And I wrote a blog post about it when I got back. And this woman called me. And at the point when she called me, I was doing a lot of customer service workshops and writing a lot about customer service. And I thought for sure that's kind of where I was going to go with my business. I was working for other companies, but eventually I thought, well, maybe eventually I'll start my own business and I'll do customer service and customer experience workshops. So she called me, and this is a woman with the International Tour Management Institute. And she said, I just read your article about this stellar tour guide, and I'm working with my organization to plan our annual symposium for tour managers and tour operators and tour guides. And you would be perfect for a session for this event. And I said, well, great. What would you want me to talk about? Customer service? She said, no, storytelling.
Wow.
And I hesitated for a second. I said, sure, I could do that. And I remember getting off the phone thinking, what did I just say? Because I had never done anything quite like that before. But she told me later on through a series of conversations and getting my proposal, it ended up being my first big keynote. And I set the tone for the whole week-long symposium. And in front of a few hundred people, I think there's 400 people or so, 300 to 400 people in the audience. And she said every year they have a storyteller come and tell stories, whatever, something related to the tourism industry. And I remember thinking, well, I have plenty of stories. And I told these 2 stories. And I also put in some information, strategic, practical tips about how to tell a story, how to improve your storytelling. And the thing that keeps popping back into my head was first that I said yes, even though I really didn't know what I was doing. And then second was that after that event, that evening when I was in the bar with a bunch of the participants, one of them came up to me who was clearly kind of a cynic. And he said, every year we have a storyteller and it's kind of fun and entertaining, but I don't ever remember one being so practical.
Wow.
And that was, it was a huge compliment.
Yes.
And that was kind of my aha moment, that just putting myself out there the way I did, in the same way that you did, the one of however many hundreds of people viewed that article, it only took one to get me my first real keynote.
That's all it takes, just one. Just one.
Yeah, it's kind of magical, isn't it?
It is. I started a hashtag on LinkedIn a little bit ago, kind of about that story, that going back to the Fortune 10 customer that called me, like, you never know what just one piece of content or just one event, experience, story, fill in the blank there, will do for you. You just got to show up. You got to put it out there. You got to tell that story. You got to make that story, be a story maker.
Exactly. And then you have to share it in a way that resonates with one person.
Yes. All you need is that one person. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
And people talk about getting really specific about your audience that you're trying to appeal to. And I've come to the conclusion that while it's nice to have the avatar, it's nice to be thinking about who might be listening, I really don't put a lot into that anymore, because most of the time, the people who reach out to me like this are not necessarily the person that I had in my head.
Same. Oh, I have the exact same feeling. I mean, experience. Because, you think in my head, I'm talking to like IT leaders, because I sell technology consulting. And next thing I know, these other amazing creators are reaching out to me saying, hey, that video you made was awesome. How did you do that? How did you do this? I love that story. And, that's not who I was actually trying to make see the video, but I had that call with them. I helped them. And, now I am propelled inside of a community on LinkedIn.
It's so cool. I love that.
It is cool. And who knows where it's going to take us all. We don't know that. We just know that we're going to do the right thing by other people, continue to be others focused, put them first. And that's my mantra. That's how we produce every show of Coffee with Kyle's. It's others focused. It's about them. How can we help them? How can we put them on to help tell their story?
Mm-hmm. I think that's the most important aspect of any conversation is I'm putting this out there because there are people that need to hear this message. Right.
Yeah. And, at a certain point, these individuals almost have a responsibility to tell that story. So once you get over the fear and you overcome fear of objection and fear of everything else, now you're like, okay, this story needs to be told. And there's a lot of stories out there that just go untold because people are afraid or they just, they don't realize the implications and the impact.
Yeah. That's one thing that we're finally kind of starting to see in a more broad environment is that recognition that everyone has a story that they can share. I'm always surprised when I go in to do a storytelling workshop with sales executives or management teams. And I start sharing these stories and having them share stories so that we can kind of critique and improve them and develop them. And the thing that always catches me is when somebody says, what if I don't have any stories? And I try not to laugh because that's not very nice.
Right.
But I always get kind of I'm sure it's a weird expression on my face, but I always kind of get this weird, what do you mean you don't have stories? Of course you have stories. And eventually we find those stories, and they're always so relieved. It's this sense of, oh my gosh, I do have stories. Why didn't I think of that? And it's because we're not reminded to think of those stories.
We're not.
So, yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you see that light bulb go on and somebody says, oh my gosh, I do have stories.
Right.
That's
Absolutely. Yeah. And like everything that I'm doing today, I'm making more stories because all of our pitfalls and failures in producing a show twice a week now, when we're making the show, like all of that stuff is, it's interesting stories for later on.
It is
stuff that we had to go through to continue to do this. I mean, you see the tip of the iceberg, you see this polished show, but you don't see what's going on under the covers.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. But it's work. There's no other way to put it. It's work.
But think about the modeling you're doing for your daughter, and she's only, how old is she now?
She's 2.5. She's
2.5, so she's a little toddler, and she's not necessarily going to know any of this.
No.
But you are modeling, first of all, you're modeling stepping out there and doing it, and not just talking about it. But you're also modeling the value of sharing those stories, how important it is. And she's going to have this well into her teens, this recognition of the importance of those internal messages that shape you based on the stories that you're sharing.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that too much, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm setting her up for the same mentality.
You are. That's wonderful. Well, it has been a pleasure. I'm so glad you joined me today for this podcast recording. I'm really looking forward to seeing what comments we get as a result of it, because I think we uncovered quite a few little tidbits that will help people think about things just a little bit differently, especially in terms of surrounding yourself with the people that you need to surround yourself with in order to take those steps and do something completely different.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. And can I add one thing, maybe a question?
Of course.
Everybody, just think about this, try to recognize what we've talked about today, that everybody has a story, everybody has something of value to share with the world, and it's almost a responsibility to do so in a way that everybody can gather that message. So here's my ask. If you're not already creating anything, blogs, a podcast, audio, video, get out there and just start. Just go create one piece of content, #just1, and see what happens. Just put yourself out there, and you're going to see doors open that you never thought were possible.
That is terrific. That is a great ask. And I would suggest that even a phrase or telling a one paragraph story is a great place to start.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a comment on somebody else's post. Because
absolutely, yes.
There's no telling who's going to read that comment. And as my friend Deb Helfrich says, the gold of LinkedIn is in the comments section.
It is, truly is.
It is. So if our listeners would like to learn more about Kyle, and is it Coffee with Kyle's?
So I'm on LinkedIn, /Kyle J. Burt. And then you can always look us up, #Coffee with Kyle's. There's 2 of us, and we drink coffee with cool people every week.
That sounds awesome. I've watched a couple of those episodes, and I really enjoy them. It feels like I'm sitting at coffee with you and just enjoying the conversation.
That's the point. We want that vibe.
Inclusive.
Feel like you're here with us. Let's just chat.
Yeah, I really like that. I love the informal feel of it. It's really good. So awesome. I will have links to that show as well as a link to your LinkedIn profile. So listeners, please feel free to connect with Kyle and let him know what you thought about this show. And we're looking forward to seeing what content you decide to share as part of your Just One.
Don't hold back.
Don't hold back. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Share Them Will. Please visit my website for more podcast episodes, blog posts, and information about how I can help you develop and share your stories at elkinsconsulting.com.
Listen to me, honey, while I say, how could you tell me that you're going away?